Today I will be going through the movement of the sit-up, how to perform it correctly, which muscles are actually activated, and how you can perform the sit-up incorrectly in the gym that could potentially hurt yourself. So what you should need to look out for and stay away from. So let's delve into this, the sit-up. Now, in talking about the sit-ups today, before we delve into how to perform sit-ups properly, I'd like to talk about the sit-ups being classified as a core activity or a core movement. I think that classification tends to be quite misleading. The sit-up is a great movement to work the rectus abdominis. The rectus abdominis is what we know as the ab muscles. Now, I've got Pat here to help me demonstrate the ab muscles. Would you like to show the ab muscles? Flex it, tense it. So he tries to tense it, and you can see these bulbous muscles called the ab muscles. That's what people aim to get within the gym. Now, are the abs synonymous with the word core? The abs are part of the core, the rectus abdominis, but the core encompasses more than just these particular muscles. In fact, they encompass a range of muscles that wrap around the body, including your transverse abdominis, your thoracolumbar fascia. It includes muscles at the top, which is your diaphragm, as well as your pelvic muscles at the bottom. So your core is a group of muscles that are being involved in stabilizing your body in any sort of movement. Thank you for that. Lovely abs. We don't want to just classify a movement like a sit-up, for example, as a core movement, because the sit-up is great to develop the rectus abdominis, but it may not be as effective for a core movement. Now, if you're looking for core movements, go lift some heavy shit. That would activate your core. Let's move now into understanding how a proper sit-up should be done. In performing a sit-up, typically there would be a machine like this. This would be a decline bench where you can actually hook and anchor your feet while you perform a sit-up. Now, obviously, the level or the degree of incline reflects the difficulty of the exercise. Less of an incline, the easier the movement. The more of an incline, the more difficult the movement is. So Pat is going to demonstrate how to actually perform a sit-up. The way I love to give you a cue for a proper sit-up is instead of just moving your body up. Now, most people would actually do this. They would throw their hands in front of them and actually get momentum to lift themselves up, and then down again and do that. Okay, so most people would actually do that to get a sit-up because the momentum itself does not contribute to your abs actually being actively worked. Really, it's just your hands moving forward. In order to work your abs, you really want to focus on what muscles you are contracting during the movement itself. The way I like to think about it is really as a towel. Can you imagine a towel? What you're going to be doing is you're going to be rolling a towel. So you want to start with your chin tucked in, and then starting to roll the towel. Imagine your 8 abs. You're going to roll it in layers. So first 2 abs, second, third, and fourth. And you're going to roll it like a towel and roll it up until you go to the top. Now, at the top position, this is where you lose tension. So most people will come up here, they'll rest, and then they'll go down again. Remember, in order to hypertrophy or grow your abs, you want to maintain that tension. So at the top position, I want you just shy of relaxing. You're still maintaining that tension. You unroll yourself. Now remember I said earlier, you start to roll yourself from the top ab all the way to your bottom abs. As you come down, you do the opposite. You roll yourself from the bottom abs all the way down to the top abs. So think of rolling a towel and unrolling a towel. You have the visual in your mind as you perform the sit-up itself. And yes, your back will round and your spine would round. But that's what you want. That's how you're going to work your abs, because it is a necessity to round your back. And that's the function of the spine, a healthy spine, in order to activate those abs. So, Pat, we're going to unroll yourself down very slowly from the lower abs all the way to your front abs. Head goes back lightly. Tuck in your chin and roll it up again very slowly. Just shy of tension and dropping it down again. So Pat himself here has really developed abs. But in performing it in this way, keep going, you start to see that he starts to shake. All right, now the movement is very common if you're starting to shake because the body is trying to stabilize itself, and it's not easy to get yourself in this position when you start to think about it in the manner that I've pointed out. So start to roll and unroll. Just shy and drop down. So keeping that tension all the way down, tuck your chin in, roll up again, stop, and let yourself unroll it down. Perfect. In a sit-up though, there are many different ways of how you can make the exercise more difficult without changing the angle itself. And that is how you load your body up when you're performing a sit-up. Most people, when they perform a sit-up, love to do it with their hands behind their head. Now, the problem with that is that, obviously, when it gets difficult, you will pull your head forward, obviously using your hands, and that can create some strain on your cervical region. And that's not what you want, because you're actually straining yourself as you're performing a sit-up. So, traditionally, they would tell you to put your hands where your ears are, or your fingers where your ears are. Don't actually grab your head, just put your couple of fingers down there and move it along. So you can perform a sit-up that way if you wish to, but I'm going to give you a couple of ways on how you can load your body up. So I'm going to give Pat a plate down here. The first way and the easiest way to load your body up is by keeping the plate on your chest. Okay, so right at your chest, and you can perform a sit-up, as I mentioned, roll yourself up and then unroll your abs back down again. So this is the first way where you're loading here at the chest. To make it more difficult, you change the load on the lever. So that means you bring the weight and you bring it to his forehead. So he taps the load on his forehead and holds it right there. Now right there, do a sit-up again. He crunches up, lets himself down. Now this becomes more difficult because the load, instead of being here in the middle, is actually brought towards the end. In order to make the sit-up even more difficult, he extends his arms all the way out. Hold the load up there, do a sit-up. He crunches up and he brings it and it comes down again. Remember, still the same thing, unroll, tuck it in, keep your hands right above your ears, biceps to ears, stretch it out, go. Okay, so this becomes a significantly more difficult sit-up because of where the load is being positioned. Now, remember when you're doing this, there is a high tendency to try to overload yourself, and when you're tired, again, you throw your hands forward to bring yourself up. If by any chance you are doing that, you have reached your limit for the number of sit-ups you can do, don't force yourself to do any more. Try to beat it in the next session rather than try to complete it all within a single session itself. Guys, just before we continue, I'd love to share a really exciting piece of news with you guys, and that is we are relaunching the learn-asp.com site. Now, this site is going to be revamped with new seminars added onto it, new features, allowing you guys to access the best information regarding health and fitness, bringing that to your fingertips. Make sure you log onto this site, but also check out the deals that we have available for you once the site is being launched. So stay tuned. Okay, now it's time to get back to today's video. When you hear about crunches being better than sit-ups because crunches is safer. Now let's look at a crunch. Pat, if you can perform a crunch for us. So a crunch is a shortened range of movement where he comes up and he holds it there and he lets himself down. The shortened range of movement really focuses on the top 4 abs where he crunches in and down. So that's a crunch, and a crunch is said to be safer than a sit-up. One of the reasons why this would be said is because individuals that do the sit-up perform it incorrectly. A lot of individuals that perform the sit-up use a lot of their hips or their hip flexors to activate the movement rather than their abs. So people will tell you, don't round your back in a sit-up, actually try to sit up. So if you're not rounding your back in a sit-up and you're sitting up, you use a lot of these hip flexors. You are not activating your abs. So if you are being told, don't round your back when you do a sit-up because it's dangerous for you, that's a fallacy. You actually do need to round your lumbar region in order to come up. Okay, that's extremely important. Round your body, round your thoracic, round your lumbar to activate your abs. So hip flexor movement, if you're using hip flexors, that is incorrect. All right, so a proper sit-up would definitely be better than the crunch because the range of movement is increased. Now, secondly, when you perform a sit-up as well, one of the things that could potentially lead to injuries is when you cannot perform the sit-up itself because your ab muscles are not strong enough, and so what you would do is you would use momentum by lifting your hips and dropping it down. Now, Pat will give us an example of this. So lift, up, drop. And you will see people in the gym, keep going, see people in the gym actually performing a movement like that where the hips come up, down, and even using their hands as momentum. Now this movement can be dangerous for an individual that may not know what they're looking out for. They are thinking that the movement itself would activate the abs, where it is not just about that particular movement, it is what muscles they're activating while they're performing the exercise itself. So in performing a proper sit-up, the action in a proper sit-up is definitely safe. It is also superior to that of a simple crunch. So I thought this would be a fallacy that I do want to clear up, that if you perform a sit-up correctly and load yourself up in the manner that I've taught you to, this would be superior to a crunch in developing your abs or your rectus abdominis. So that's all for the sit-ups. If you have any questions, make sure that you put it in the comment section below. But otherwise, like and subscribe, and I will see you in our next video next week.